Hello, I'm Chelsea King Martin,
And I'm Kristin Lee Amundsen Spear.
and we are here today to talk about alchemizing divorce, honoring loss and transition, and a workshop that we're collaborating on designing to invite you to also share stories about divorce and how we have honored the grief and the loss and the transition and potential.
Absolutely. And I think what's really exciting about this workshop is that it's going to be not only experiential, because I think certainly telling of the stories is really important, but also having witnesses to the story that have been through something similar is very helpful. That community coming together is a very ancient tribal way of processing things like grief and loss and transition, and we are creating something of that, sort of this new community of people to come together and go through a process together.
Yeah, a public process. Maybe what we could do right now is just share one ritual that each of us have done in our personal life.
Yes.
And that might give a little bit of a taste of what people might already begin doing while they're waiting for the workshop, or some like a flavor of what they might see
That's
emerge in
beautiful.
the workshop. So, you want to share?
Yeah, so if you have heard my story, or when you hear my story, the place where actually I learned of the loss of my marriage, or that my husband didn't want to be married anymore, I had friends that were newly together, that were going to the same place, doing the same thing on bicycles, everything. And I put together in my mind and physically this ritual for them to do. That involved, I had cards in each spot and what they needed to do and where they needed to leave things. And I just created this whole amazing ritual, including like leaving a little heart that said love in the spot where burning some sage incense, going up to the top where it was, sort of the culmination of it all, where we actually started to talk about things, and kiss, because I wasn't sure, they were pretty new. I was kind of pushing them as well, and kiss and like sort of do this release of this, doing this ritual for me. The funny thing was, they got back from the trip, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how was your trip? How was the ritual? And she handed me back my bag full of things and said, we left it in the car. They forgot it. She felt horrible. But what was pretty awesome about it is just even the imagination of the ritual that I had created did something to release some of that tightness and that grief and that sadness. And I feel like it worked even though all the physical things were in my hands right there in that silk bag.
Yeah. Wow.
It's good.
Yeah, I love how much thought you put into it and care that you put into it, and how even though it didn't manifest the way that you had envisioned that it would, that it still packed the same amount of power. It still sort of released the energy that it needed to.
Absolutely.
This idea of releasing energy, I think, is resonating with me. When I was moving out of my home after my divorce, I was moving out of a home I had been in for 14 years, and my kids had, been raised in a lot of good memories and difficult memories as well. And I did a ritual on 11/11 at 11/11 to try to bring a little magic into it and make it something I could easily remember. And I invited a handful of women over, and we burned some things and we buried some things, and we read some things. And so I had a fire, and I buried some items that were symbolic of my marriage. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them, so we had a funeral. But there is something that I have kept. It's a little glass jar. It has a cork in it, almost like a message in a bottle. And in there was a little tiny shriveled up black rose from 22 years earlier, which was a single rose from a dozen roses that my husband had given me. The first flowers he gave me, and I had dried it and kept it. And when I looked at that, I thought, well, what is a person supposed to do with something like this? And I pried that cork out, and I used a tool to pull the shriveled up, dried rose out of it. And I burned it in the fire and it was before these women had arrived. It was actually something private that I had done. Yeah, it was a little more personal. Interestingly, the rose, it was almost already alchemized. It didn't burn. Even though the fire was fairly hot, it just sort of sat there like a piece of coal would or something, right? I had imagined it would poof, just go up in flames. No, it just sat there. But it did obviously eventually burn, and I wrote a message to myself that was significant, and I folded it up and put it in the bottle. So I still have the bottle, but the contents are different.
They've shifted. What a beautiful ceremony. I love that it has sort of that completion of the releasing, and then also sort of the self-blessing of keeping it and alchemizing it, transforming what this object once was that represented sort of that love and connection to a new beginning for you and your heart and your self-love. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I think it shows the importance of ritual and the ritual of releasing and of changing and alchemizing and becoming anew. And that's something that really inspired us in the creation of this workshop, is to be able to do that together, witnessed with other like-minded people.
Yeah, so March 30th is the day of the workshop, and we will just continue to invite you to think about your stories and your rituals, and invite you to join Kristin and I at the Alchemizing Divorce Workshop on March 30th here in Portland.
Excellent. We hope to see you there.